So, on the eve of Dr. King's holiday, something that had been fought for so long, we have the pleasure today of introducing a warrior in the tradition of Sojourner Truth, in the tradition of Fannie Lou Hamer, and so many others. Our sister is a shining star and an example. And I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of her bio. So Sister Ashaki Binta is a lifelong organizer and political activist in the Black freedom movement, experienced in Black political power, labor, trade union, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, and electoral organizing. Now retired, she has worked as an organizer and representative in the U.S. National Trade Union Movement for nearly 20 years, including serving on the national staff of the United Electrical Radio and Machine Workers of America, UE, for 11 years. She was a founding member and organizer of the Southern Workers Assembly in 2012. Ashaki is a veteran member of the Black Workers for Justice, serving in a number of posts in over 40 years, including Director of Organization and International Representative. She was the founding organizer of the Black Workers for Justice Women's Commission in 1985, which continues to be active today, and was also a founding organizer in 2022 with the Women in the Spirit of Mandela of Women United Against Genocide. WAUG is an organizing network to unite women from Black, Brown, Indigenous, and working class communities inside the United States in the fight against genocide, national and class oppression. Currently, Sister Ashaki serves as National Strategic Organizer for the Black Workers for Justice, continuing the work of building the power of the Black working class and of social movement unionism in the United States South, among other political priorities. This evening, we have the pleasure of Sister Ashaki Binta. Welcome, my sister.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I appreciate being invited.
Yeah, it's good to see you again. I know you and we were on a program about 2 years ago around the UPS struggle. And that's where I first got to talk to you and meet you. And we had a very good conversation and meeting with other like-minded people. And so I'm looking forward to this conversation again, because as Chris said, tomorrow is is ironic.
Yes.
You know, we have a person who we're going to celebrate as being one of the most humanitarian people known to man. You're talking about a person who walked on picket lines, fought for civil rights, fought for workers' rights, talked about how right to work was a devastation to the labor movement. And then we're going to turn around and inaugurate a man who says that working people should be fired if they go on strike against their employer, who says that right to work is good. And so, you know, I'm looking to hear what you have to say about some of these things. You have an extensive background in fighting for people, working class people. So I'm just glad that you're here. And I got to give a big shout out to my sister down there in Atlanta, Yvette, for coming up here. A couple of weeks ago, we had our first 3E meeting here at our union hall, and she was there, and we had a great time. And that's what it's about, solidarity. No matter where you're from, no matter where you come from, if you in the working class, we're really going to have to stick together during this time. So, sister, thank you for being on the show. And thank you too, sis, Yvette. Thank you for that.
Anytime. Thank you guys for having us.
So what happens when the polar vortex meets the equatorial vortex? Sister Ashaki, I know you're very politically inclined and how it impacts trade unionists. Give us a sense of what happened leading up to November's presidential election. What did you see? What were some of the lessons that you learned coming out of that?
Well, I really appreciate that question. I tell you, I still feel a tremendous amount of anger about the election, truthfully. And I've heard a lot of sisters saying that, because, there were two feelings that to me, came to the Black community as a result of that election. And first of all, the white supremacy, really rearing its head, and, just a complete rejection of the important history and experience of the African American people in this country, which was in complete opposition just about to the direction that the country is going in. And we've been that way over and over again throughout history. And so there was a great opportunity to take a different path this time. And, of course, they refused to do it. And I think coupled with that was a real male chauvinist tendency and attitude where, there was a rejection as well of having, faith and trust and recognizing the experience of Black women and helping to lead. And it was so symbolic because it's not so surprising that Kamala Harris lost, because the Democratic Party made some critical errors, particularly in dealing with the question of Palestine, before this election was held. And I mean, Biden was just a complete Zionist and a complete
Facilitator.
Yeah, just had no sensitivity whatsoever about the suffering of the Palestinian people and the kind of outrageous, the Zionist state of Israel, the way it was conducting this so-called response to, a liberation strike against, the kind of oppression that the Palestinian people have been suffering. So they were bad. And Kamala Harris, I don't know what her views are, but, she may as well have been Biden himself, because she did not separate herself from that in a clear way. And so those were some of the critical errors that were made, of course. But, short of that, the image of the African American people being at Howard and, all of these, Black middle class sororities and fraternities and all this, but the symbolism of trying to move in this country in a different direction than it's been in over the past 500 years was so clear and stark. And so it was just even more of a clear rejection of this country correcting itself and going in a different direction. So, I felt like it was a slap in the face, and, and I felt angry about it. But I think overall, the Black community stood firm. Not so much, I mean, there was a lot of people supporting Kamala Harris and all that in the Black community, especially Black women particularly. But I think our whole Black community, pretty much, there were some Black men who were voting with Trump that showed really identifying with the male chauvinism, I thought, but not significant numbers.
Right.
But this whole question of moving, the country in a different direction, and and also, both in terms of white supremacy and male supremacy, and, just the overall oppression that, Black and brown people in this country have suffered for hundreds of years. And it was a complete rejection of that and a slap in the face. That's the way it felt to me. And I was angry about it, and I still feel angry.
Do you believe that there might very well be an underpinning? So if you go back in time, just not too far back. So Obama is born, and the very people who voted for Barack Obama then turn around and vote for Donald Trump, right? Which this would never have happened in Europe, but
interesting, isn't that?
That interesting? And then the same people who voted for Bernie Sanders in a primaries turn around and vote for Trump. Could it be that the working class is actually in the throes of rejecting both parties.
Oh, well, good question, and we should certainly hope so. I'm not so, there may be an opportunity here now because I think, particularly in terms of the Black working class, but the working class in this country in general, whatever, nationality you're a part of, should be independent of the Democratic and Republican parties and any of these other parties, for the simple reason that they're clearly representative of the interests of capital and of ruling class families in this country, and that's who they serve. And you have a far right now, fascistic kind of sector of it that's come into power and has been fighting for power for quite some number of years now. And so they've reached that point where they're controlling the federal, the national, and the international government. But I'm sure hoping, but it can't be just a wish. We got to have some alternative that people can turn to that to them speaks to their needs and interests, and we haven't had that. And so that's why it seems so overwhelming that people are, Democrat in the Black community are identified more as Democrats primarily, but over and over again, we're the real needs of our community are not represented and are rejected pretty much over and over again. So I hope you're right about that, but we got to organize something that gives people a choice. And right now there isn't one.
And that was going to kind of be like my follow-up question, because you've been doing this kind of work for decades and you've been an organizer for a very long time. So how do we as a working class body, how do we start to build a infrastructure where we don't have to depend on either party, whether it be Democrat or Republican? What do we need to do to lay the foundation where we can go and start putting these pieces in place? In your experience, what can we do to make that happen?
In my thinking, that's a great question. I think a couple of things. One is, even in this period right now, and we've been talking about this in Black Workers for Justice for a while now, but I wish that we could organize a meeting of Black trade unionists and labor organizations and Black workers, even in this coming period, sometime later this year or whenever, of us meeting among ourselves to talk about what we see as being our main interests and what vital stands we should be taking against Trumpism and the anti-unionism and the anti-everything else that this regime represents. We should have a meeting because we need to have an independent voice that reaches back into, our communities, with taking stands on critical questions. And so that people can see a visible place where, the Black community is positioning itself. So that's one aspect. And that's something I don't know if any of us here would be interested in working together on calling such a meeting. But to me, it's really needed. And we need to do it as soon as we can this year, I think. But the other part of it for the Black community is just that, in the South, the majority of the Black population in this country still, after 500 years, the majority still live in the Southern region. And we have so many needs in the South in terms of rebuilding a kind of, activist social movement, trade unionism, like we saw at one point in Brazil and South Africa, back 20, 30 years ago, when their trade union movements were fighting against, apartheid and fighting against, fascism and these type of things. We need that kind of trade union movement. And the only opportunity to get there, I think, is if we build new movements in the South. And so that's another aspect of supporting the work of building new trade unions in the South, organizing the unorganized, which is going to directly impact our people because, the majority of the Black community, that's where we are. Not saying that we don't organize all over the country. Obviously we do wherever we are. We got to be organizing. But, we got to have some strategic understanding of what our geographical as well as our political situation is. and, plan and base, organizing on that. So those are two things that I think immediately are needed.
Yeah, I'm all for a meeting this year as soon as possible to start talking about those things, because starting tomorrow, we're going to be in a bad situation.
No doubt about it, brother.
And we're going to have
No
to
doubt about it.
lean on each other in order to get through it.
Yeah.
And and I know Chris wanted to say something. I saw him with his hand.
I saw that too.
You on mute? You on mute, brother?
March, let me just make sure I get the date right. March the 1st. You know Larry Holmes, right, Ashaki?
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
So Larry and those people want to put together the very type of meeting that you're talking about up here in New York on March the 1st at Local 808 to discuss how do we travel this road as trade unionists, as the working class, and I'm telling people I'm really just like putting Trump to the side
Yeah.
and looking at the oligarchy that now surrounds him, right? Where
Yeah.
the notion of fact checking out the window so that anybody can say anything, any lie can be told, and you don't have to be accountable,
Mm-hmm.
as a media, because they're saying social media, but they chopping off the media part and saying, well, we social, but we really not media. But that's where most people are getting their information.
Mm-hmm.
TikTok, Instagram. And if you
Yeah.
see now that they're
Especially the young people, yeah.
they're actually going to overturn the Supreme Court decision or ignore the Supreme Court decision. And tomorrow you will see, I don't know if he's the owner or the head of TikTok, but some big mucky muck from TikTok will be on that dais with Musk, with Bezos, with Zuckerman. And you're going to see the oligarchy sitting together with the puppet.
Yeah.
My.
You understand what I'm saying?
Oh
Because
yeah.
a few years ago, he was against TikTok
Right.
Mm-hmm.
until he found out the amount of hits and
Right.
views he was getting on TikTok.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And
Right.
maybe a couple of dollars in the coffers help too.
Mm-hmm.
And, so you're going to see the next 4 years is going to be probably the greatest crime wave against the working class in the history of this country.
Wow.
Greatest crown.
Yeah.
My.
This is going to rival anything that Rockefeller, Carnegie, and any of
Mm-hmm.
them guys ever did. This is going
Right.
to way get past that, because the working class today is unaware of their status as the working class, and they're caught up in being the middle class and
Right.
Right.
and,
That's
and
right.
and what have you.
That's
You know,
right.
I like to tell people all the time, I say, if you're getting up and punching a clock every day, you ain't white.
Right. And that is absolutely the truth.
That's how we lit off our meeting on January 5th, Chris. I talked to, and Yvette was there. We talked about the difference between, these classes, and that we are in a class struggle.
Yeah,
Like you said, just because you drive a
That's right.
feeder, you got a BMW and you live on that side of town, that don't mean that you accepted in the ruling class.
that's right.
No. Because tomorrow when you go to work, your manager put you to the side and say, hey man, we don't need you no more.
That's right.
You know what
That's
I
right.
mean? And I think sometimes we forget that your check does not, put you in a different class in which you are. It may put you in a different tax bracket,
That's right.
but your class remains the same.
That's right.
Exactly.
You
That's
know what I
right.
mean? And I think sometimes we have to educate our members on that. Hey man,
Yes. That's right.
don't think because you got a couple more zeros on your check make you think you better than somebody. Or you're not in a part of the working class. Nah, man. Nah, sis, you still right here with us.
Yeah.
Right.
And we gotta do a better job with that.
And we have to do that on a national level, right?
Yes.
So,
That's right.
if you go to Canada, you will hear trade unionists in Canada speak about the working class. If you go to Europe, you'll hear trade unionists talk about the working class. In America, we have this middle class, middle class. We're fighting
Right.
for the middle class.
That's right.
A sister Clarence, a brother Clarence Thomas out in from the retired ILWU Local 10 member, actually gave a speech at Local 808 at our shop stewards thing one year and talked about how when they use that term, they're really using the term not to talk to the working class, but to actually isolate the white working class, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Insightful. That's
and,
right.
and there were some white stewards there. They actually cornered Clarence after the speech and had him for about an hour. And Clarence broke it down to them, just explaining to them what this means and what the implications are when you don't recognize. Listen, even
Your own class interests.
yeah, even Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett said publicly, "We are in a class war, and my class is winning."
Yeah.
Understand what I'm saying? So he wasn't even. He was being very honest. I mean, you can't be that.
Right now they are. But
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
He's winning every time we turn.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some numbers about how rich these oligarchs have gotten just in the last 3 months.
And how many more billionaires there are these days than ever before in history.
There's a correlation between the growth of the billionaire class and the demise of the working class.
That's right.
And the shrinking of union mass
That's
in
right.
the countries.
That's right.
There's a whole correlation between all these three. And this is where, instead of trying to be on the dais with them tomorrow, our general president should be putting out information to show what the implications have been from 1975 till now,
That's right.
on the working class. I mean, if you see the graphs, you would send people to jail of how they have robbed the working class of participation in the wealth growth that have taken place since 1975.
I got a question for the group here. Because we're talking about, class struggle and things. So Sarah Nelson, I think it was around 2020, back when COVID had first came in and they were trying to get the attendants to fly the planes. And I think she had like a contract coming up or something like that. It was, I can't remember, but she was talking about a general strike. And I know Sean Fain had talked about something like that too. My question to everybody here and everybody listening is, do you think, number one, do you think that it ever happened? And the second part would be, how do we get something like that formulated? Because you're going to have all the unions together, all the workers together, and it has to be like a massive organizing drive to get that kind of movement together. And I'm guessing
you froze up. So are you talking about the national strike or something now, or what?
Yeah, a general strike.
General strike.
Do you think that we can accomplish something?
But I gotta go deal with my kitchen. I'll be back.
All right. Do you think that we could accomplish something like that? Because to your point, if you look at the salaries of CEOs in correlation to the worker, it has skyrocketed. I mean, it's just getting larger and larger and larger by the year. And they seem to forget that if workers put their hands in their pocket, there is no profit. And there is no record-breaking profit. There is not, these massive salaries they're getting. So in my mind, I think that's what needs to happen. I think one day, after we didn't organize it, we just, hey man, you know what? We're not going to work. We're not going to your warehouses. We're not going to the railroad. We're not going to the package cars. We're not getting into the 18-wheelers. We're not flying the planes. We're not stocking the groceries. We're not doing anything, and see how much profit you make. And we don't have to do it that long. You don't have to do it. I think if you do that maybe 24 to 48 hours, you will shut down the entire economy. And I think that's the kind of language and conversations that we need to start having with our members
together.
and with our leaders. Let them know, man, we don't have to be afraid of, you know, of your boss. You really, in actuality, you have the power to shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't talk like that. And I think it's because we've got too comfortable. We got too comfortable because, my contract is pretty good. I don't have to pay for my health care. I can, instead of going on one vacation with my family, I can go to 3 vacations. I don't have to go to McDonald's, man. Now I can go to Wendy's or something, man. I don't know. Well,
Whatever,
no,
yeah.
I can go to Five Guys. I can go to Five Guys now, man. I ain't got to go to, I ain't got to go to McDonald's. I can get I don't have to shop at Target to get my kids some shoes. I can go to Foot Locker or something. And I think
Mm-hmm.
we kind of get caught up in what we can get because of our money instead of realizing that our labor is being taken advantage of. And so, Sister Shaki, what you think about that? I mean, a general strike, especially with what's coming, because I
Yeah,
think we need to meet that type of behavior with another type of behavior.
that's
You know what
right.
I mean?
Well, interestingly enough, I don't know if anybody on here has heard, but there is discussion going on now about having a general strike on May Day of 2028, and there is discussion. I think some part of the UAW may have
Yeah, I
been
know Sean Fain, he actually had talked about,
calling for that.
right, and having every contract expire around
Yeah,
that time. Yeah,
at the same time, yeah, they've been
right,
talking about that. Now in
right.
Southern Workers Assembly, we have endorsed that, and but we want to make sure that elements of the unorganized in the South or key Southern industries that are basing themselves in the South or have historically been based in the South are a part of that call. So the organizing among them, even though there may not be contracts in all instances, but we want to make sure that coming to the table and participating in this thing, both the organizing and discussion of it between now and then, but even on that day that the a general strike, that we're a part of it. So we've endorsed that, and that we're going to be working toward that in the southern region, attempting to deal with this. So it's so badly needed. And
Yeah.
just as you were outlining, it doesn't have to be that long, because I thought
No.
UAW's tactics were pretty creative to force them to have to deal with some new contracts when they, called their strike. And, the way it unfolded, they didn't just strike everything at once so the company could, respond, but they kept escalating, to, another branch, another branch, if you don't agree, until they finally had to fold and give up a little bit that they weren't planning to give up. So, and you, when you study the history again of, when there were strong labor movements in South Africa and Brazil and other parts of the world, they would have test strikes, a 1 day strike here and a 1 day strike there around certain questions, so that, there's a kind of orientation and a strengthening of the solidarity and the will and the understanding and knowledge of what this will require. And so there, creatively, I think there are ways that, that we can deal with this. So I'm 100% in favor of it, because, working people need to take, a firm, clear stand. And,
Mhm.
we've got to push against the, tradition of business unionism that took control of the U.S. national labor movement coming out of the 1940s and 50s, where they chased out all the activists and, had the anti-communist
Mhm.
uh, pledges and all this crap that went on that weakened labor movement significantly. So a different kind of trade unionism, uh, and a different approach and call, we need that. And so that
Right.
would be an expression of a change that hasn't happened in a long time. So yes, I think this is something we should all be working on together and figuring
Yeah,
out how it can
absolutely.
be implemented. And if these contracts can be, coordinated enough together, that key industries that really have an impact on the national economy, can kind of work together. So it's interesting. I'm, anxious to see, what the national thinking is. But from our standpoint in the South, yes, we want to work toward this.
Chris, I know you got something to say about that.
Yeah. So I think it's relatively it's extremely difficult to coordinate that every contract in this country would expire on June the 1st. I'm just picking June. June the 1st, 1928. I don't know.
2028, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know historically that anybody ever organized a general strike, probably with the exception of the 8-hour day strike that was global.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that you could organize, so the conditions develop, right? So general strikes are never organized. General strikes happen,
Right.
right? So I think through these next 4 years, those conditions are going to come to the forefront, and it's going to demand the response of a general strike, in which that strike doesn't have anything to do with whether your contract expired or not. People now start to stand up in solidarity with a specific event, right? So I'm just thinking back, 1934 on the West Coast, 1934 in Minneapolis, 1934 in Toledo. 1934 was this crucial year, all right? And all of those strikes happened in one spot, and then conditions spread. In fact, the employer actually puts fuel on it and causes it to spread, right? So I think that you could look at something like a railroad strike, or a longshoreman strike, or a UPS strike, something big enough, significant enough to jar everything else and make everything else look up, right?
That's creative. That's very creative.
And then when that happens, it forces everybody else to have to come to the aid, but there has to be a set of demands that are bigger than the union itself, right? So the demands have to be something in which the unorganized worker is going to gain something from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're calling for I'm just going to make up a number, the number I like, a 50% wage increase for all workers, right? Sounds ridiculous, but it's doable.
Mm-hmm.
This country can afford, right?
This country can afford it. There's no doubt about it.
Right? All these companies can afford it.
Yep.
Right? When you're worth $2 trillion and this type of money, right? The top 5 oligarchs are worth about 900 billion. Just think about that.
Gee.
Right? 5 people, right? They could wipe out hunger. They could actually fix California and still be billionaires. Not any insurance money, just here, and they'd all still be billionaires, multi-billionaires, right? So the system can afford it. So that strike has to be something where some nebulous guy, in the backwoods of Mississippi chopping down some trees sees a benefit to not going to work next week, that sees a benefit to not going to work next month, because it's going to be, but the conditions are I think those conditions are going to be highlighted in the next 4 years, because they now have, maybe even in the next 2 years, because they control the Congress. Let me just, so I drive a bit, right? So I get to think crazy stuff for 2.5 hours each way. Hegseth becomes the head of the Department of Defense. And I'm going to tell you how you know they're in league with each other. They're in league with each other because your conversation about Hegseth, oh, well, wasn't you drinking last week? You beat up this woman the other day, and this, and this, right?
Yeah.
All you had to do to show how Hegseth has no right to be in this job is pull up the qualifications of the last 20 secretaries of state. What were these
To really
people's
educate the people as to
qualifications,
what's going on.
right? This one was a general. He was a general. He was a general. He's got a PhD. He studied war. He studied, logistics. He studied all these different things. He went to the war college. Listen, I was in the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think I'm qualified to be
Secretary of State.
You know what I'm saying? So just the fact that you were in the military don't qualify you to a damn thing. Said pull that
That's
trigger
right.
I tell you to, right?
And just because you've been on, right-wing Fox News talking
But
head.
he doesn't have the qualifications. So Hexeth is in place. Now you have the lunatic that they plan to put into the FBI. And then you have some external extremist group do something, throw a hand grenade someplace, do something, and they're going to blame it on ISIS West or ISIS South or whatever. All of this comes crumbling down, right? Because you're going to be chasing down journalists, you're going to be chasing down trade unionists.
That's right. People thinking all this stuff is not going to touch us.
And missing all of these other things that's going on, right? And you're going to see, let me tell you something, the next 4 years are probably going to be the best 4 years that Labor ever had in terms of what happens in the future, right? Because they are going to destroy themselves. They can't help it. You have not heard one of these people pledge allegiance to the United States of America.
That's correct, because they ain't got none. They got no
Every one of them pledged allegiance to Donald Trump.
Right. And themselves, what they're going to get out of it, what profits they're going to get out of this whole.
This is going to be what you're going to see. Let me tell you, just started. Musk just had a rocket go up and blew up in the sky.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So hell's bells is about to show up. Believe you me.
So I got a good comment here from our sister here, Georgia Gaines. When we were talking about the general strike and, organizing and things like this, was a real good comment because she's 1000% correct. She said, "Hi, sounds great, but we can't even get our members to vote." And she is right.
So I want to address this voting thing. Because I had a conversation. The largest voting bloc in America is I don't vote. That's the largest voting bloc.
Right.
Right? Black, white, blue, brown, green, male, female. The largest voting bloc in America is I don't vote. And they don't vote because they can't see where my vote has done anything materially sufficient.
That's right.
So it's not, we got the Affordable Care Act, thank you very much, but it ain't universal health care, right? We still haven't raised the federal minimum wage, right? We still haven't been able to pass something like the PRO Act. We still haven't been able to make Social Security feel comfortable. We still haven't been able to improve Social Security, right? Still under threat every day. So when you look at what's going on, young kids, these young kids are feeling Gaza. This is their Holocaust, right? And people try to make fun of it. Or, if you listen to some of the comedians like Bill Maher, they're not in solidarity with Hamas.
Right.
They're opposed to the genocidal response to the Palestinian people.
That's right.
They have killed about 50,000 people in Gaza.
That's right.
Hamas ain't that big.
Right.
Right? They're acting like these tunnels got built 2 weeks before. These tunnels have been there for, you can't build a tunnel overnight.
For decades.
Have you looked at these tunnels?
They've been working on that for decades.
Those tunnels have been there for 70 years. It's not a secret.
Right.
Right? they look at the 7th of October. Let us call the 7th of October a horrendous day, right? The Palestinian people in 12 months, I don't know if you know Queens, New York.
Mm-hmm.
Queens, New York was bombed for 12 months. There is nothing left there, right? And Malcolm's words are coming true because Saudi Arabia is now taking sides with the Zionists.
Isn't that something?
Right? So now, if you look at what's going on now, they bombed Iran, and they told Iran, if you blink, we'll bust you up, right? They went and took out Hezbollah, right? Nasrallah been around for about 35, 40 years. They gave these guys beepers that they've been wearing their shit for 5 years about it. Right? This is how deep this is, right?
Yeah.
So they took out Hamas, they took out Hezbollah, they took out Iran and says, yo, don't blink, right? And if you look at what's happening, the resistors to the dominance of global capitalism, right, have been taken out. And Malcolm warned us that the media would have you love your enemy and hate your friend.
That's right.
Because when people were struggling in Ferguson, kids in Palestine and Gaza were communicating with them and telling them, yo, this tear gas, here's how you handle this. This thing going on, here's how you handle that, because we live this oppression every day. Gaza is not a country.
That's right.
Gaza is an open air prison. Nothing goes in, nothing goes out without Israel's yes. Nothing. No bank, no food, no nothing.
That's right.
Right? Look at the amount of children that died. So these young kids are seeing this genocide with their own eyes. Right? Because we only watch what's on CNN and Fox and MSNBC. They're watching raw video footage that's coming up on TikTok and these other platforms that's showing them stuff we have never seen.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they checked out. Right? And Kamala's refusal to separate herself, right? Israel has a right to defend itself. Okay. From who? What? Do the Palestinians have a right to defend themselves?
That's right.
Because they don't have a tank. They don't have F-15s. They don't have, let me tell you something, the rockets that they fire, the only time somebody dies is if they were nearby and a piece of debris
or something
jumped up and hit them. None of them have died from the rocket itself.
Mm-hmm.
I would try to get my money back for them rockets that they buying from wherever they get them from. Because I don't know nobody. I think one time it hit a military base and some people died. But them rockets is useless, right? So we have to look and see what's going on. Look at our budget. Just look at our budget. Ukraine, how long that been going on now? About 2 years?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe $100 billion or more have been spent in Ukraine.
And they have no problem spending it.
None. But if you say, well, we got to fix this school, or we need reparations,
money for that.
or, the deficit,
Right, but you didn't care about the deficit when you were sending that money over there.
No,
right?
not when it comes to war.
Yeah.
So if you watch when they propose budgets, none of their budgets ever go towards cutting the military. Cut Medicare, cut Medicaid, cut Social Security, cut anything else except that military budget. Now, what good it is that I have the best submarines on the planet, and if I fall into a pothole, I got a flat tire.
Yeah.
What's the win to the working class?
Right. There isn't any.
There is none.
There is none. That's right.
So I gotta ask Sister Yvette this question. Not a question. But excuse me, Georgia Ritchie. I'm glad you put that up there. I apologize for that too. So, you know, how do we get our younger workers to vote? Because if you look at what happened in our last IBT election, over 1 million people didn't vote. If you look at what Chris was talking about, you know, folks are not voting because of they don't see any value in the voting. When, to Chris's point, you know, we out here struggling on the street, and you sending all the money that could help us over to Ukraine and all these other places. So, Yvette, how do we get, especially our younger members, because I know you're around them a lot, how do we get our younger members, younger workers to vote?
You know, I always say we have to educate them and find what touches them specifically. We're gonna be in a time frame, I think, now that we're gonna have a lot of stuff that's gonna touch them specifically with this new this new
Yeah.
leadership coming in, because everybody's gonna start feeling some stuff fairly quickly. Um, Even his own people already feeling some stuff. They done spent all their hard-earned money. They go to DC, and now he gonna take it indoors and leave their asses outside. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
now they all upset. They done spent their little money. It's hard to come by just for this
Yeah.
one opportunity. And now he like, oh man, I done got y'all vote. I don't care if y'all up here. We gonna be inside out here warm. So when you start touching things, like I say, specific to people, and they realize, okay, now I can't do this. I used to do this. This used to be, this wasn't as high as it used to be. I could barely afford it. Now I can't afford it at all.
Mhm.
We can't live at all. Now in a minute, somebody gonna be ready to hit the street. And
Yeah.
so now that they've already brought TikTok back, posting Trump name all over the place, saying he's the reason why it's
Yeah.
back today.
Right. Right.
Um, we're gonna have our communications. People are gonna be able to see some stuff. He was trying to win points by that, but I know he said we won't have to vote again, so we'll see about that. But people will be motivated, like I said, once it's something specific to them that they can really understand. Hey, this really does affect me because this happened, and so now what I need to do? They're gonna be running to. I think we're gonna have more people running to us to organize. Like Chris was saying, it's gonna be the best years for labor because stuff is going to be touching home. It's going to be hitting home real quick, real fast, and people are going to be looking for solutions. And we need to be right there, ready
Yeah.
with information and ready with plans in order to get us where we need to go. Because it's about to flood in. We had to change our viewpoint. Like I said, when the election had me the same way, sister. How many times these folks got to tell me that they hate me? Okay, because that's what it
Uh,
feels like. I mean, how many times you got to tell me that you hate
Right,
me as a black woman in America? And
right.
just like I had to tell,
that's
the
deep.
team, it's hard being black in America. It's also
Yeah.
hard being a teamster in
Mm,
black.
mm.
Okay, so I had to say that on the mic one
Oh,
time.
you preaching
It's really
today,
hard.
sis.
I
Woo.
think because listen, that's the truth be told, we understand. But when and we know it's there. But them real stark reminders is hard, but we had to get through it.
Yeah.
And I said I'll never let my ancestors down by not continuing to fight. Because if they would have stopped fighting, I wouldn't be right here to fight.
There you
Right.
So
go.
I refused to, lay down. But I had to take me a few minutes to gather
Yeah.
my thoughts in mind for a couple of days. But for sure, like I said, we're gonna have people knocking at our door. I got folks now, you know, reaching out every day. We getting ready. It's about to be a floodgate of, all right, what y'all talking about? We need to get with y'all kind of deal going on
Right.
because it is really about to slap the house. It's gonna hit home
Mm.
and hit hard, and they'll be ready. So
Yeah,
we just gotta be ready.
eggs
You
went
know,
up.
I agree.
Eggs
I
went up
agree
and nobody's complaining.
with both what Chris and Yvette have said. About the education and making it. Is it meaningful that people can see something? They're going to get something out of it by voting. And the other thing that I would add is that we got to have some real battles at the local level, local and state level around control of areas where we have majorities, because we're not really in control, of the areas where we live. So they're able to implement a strategy from the state down of these redistricting, and we don't really connect with that and fight around that. You have a few people in the black middle class that do, But in terms of our community's understanding that they're taking our vote away, and they only need to shave off a few percentage points of the Black vote to help
Yeah,
them.
right.
So so their strategies are very subtle in that way, where they're targeted, that they're going to shave off a couple of percentage points over here and over there, where they know they're not going to get the votes. So they're going to eliminate those votes, you know. And so if we don't have organization that people are a part of, that's part of educating them, and also a part of, you know, making the fight about something that really would have some impact on people's lives, then I think people will vote. But we don't have organization, we don't have strategy.
Mm.
You know, we don't have a program that people can see that what they're fighting for. If you have that, I think people will vote, more people
Right.
than, you know, normally do. But we're kind of disconnected because everything's being run through the Democratic Party.
That's
And
right.
so, you know, that's, you know, that interest over and over again, you know, being there, it really has nothing to do with
Right.
what the real needs are in our community. You just got people that want to be politicians, you know, popping up here and there, say, I'm running and I'm
Yeah.
gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. It's not coming from the bottom up. It's not coming from the masses of people saying, this is the program that we want. We want this change, that change. We want this in our neighborhood. We want this amount of money for our schools. We want, you know, clinics, new
Yeah.
clinics be opened up over here for healthcare. When you're fighting on those kind of things, people will vote.
Right.
But that's never the, you know, the shallow Democratic
Yeah.
Party stuff. It was just, you know, manipulating votes so the powers that be can stay in power. And, you know, both sides can have, you know, this 2 years, the Democrats will have it, and the next 2 years, the Republicans will have it, and all this crap. So, you know, organization among the masses of our people, what makes such a big difference, but it's got to be the right kind of organization that's grounded so that the education works, you
Because
know.
the people that's working on the ground, I'm just thinking of Sister Jaribu down in Mississippi working in the Delta.
Uh-huh.
I am sure that the national body of the Democratic Party have never spoken to her. You understand what I'm saying?
That ain't a big guess, so.
I'm down here doing no. So one of the reasons why, and it's
That's
'cause
right.
why
That's right.
you know, I want people to hear from you, Shaki, and to hear from Black Workers for Justice and so forth at UE, is for people to understand that there are people out here doing work that they have never seen, they
That's
have
right.
never heard of. It doesn't show up on CNN, it doesn't show up on
That's right.
MSNBC, but this
That's
work
right.
is being done every day. You understand? And I know that the values, you know, of the people in the Delta, of the people in Mississippi and South, you know, when I look at South Carolina, I remember we had a shrock there some years ago when Clarence came and we all were there.
Yeah.
And I spoke to this sister at the hotel. She wasn't the manager, but she answered all the questions because the manager didn't know nothing. I even tell you what the manager looked like. But this Black woman was at the front desk, and she was essentially running this hotel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure she was making $15 an hour.
That's right.
You hear what I'm telling you?
Yep.
That's right.
So what is what's that congressman there?
Oh yeah, the one that Biden is.
Biden baby brother, right?
Yeah.
What have you done for these people, right? When
Yeah.
you go to Benny Thompson, them down in Mississippi, what have you done? So when you asking me to vote, you ask me to get up out of my bed, go down here, join a line, for what? I have yet to see you articulate anything, bring home anything.
That's right.
Right? Most of these Black politicians, you can't get in that race. When you see Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez being elected, she's an aberration.
Mm-hmm.
Presley's an aberration.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just up in Detroit is an aberration. So there's 5 or 6 of them. And who don't like them?
Mm-hmm.
Nancy Pelosi don't like them. Hakeem Jeffries don't like them. Because you can't get to that place unless you have sworn allegiance.
That's right.
Worry about what's happening with your people.
Yeah, that's right. And you're gonna have to go along with the program if you
You're
want
going
to
to
be
have to go along with the
Yeah.
program.
You're gonna get pulled
You
into
think
that
they turned
corruption.
over that
You're gonna
thing?
get pulled into it because there's no other way that it works.
You got to drag them, kicking and
Oh.
screaming. into doing something for the working class. I've yet to see the bill that said raise the minimum wage.
That's right. Nothing.
Right? And so both sides, Democrat and Republican, hey, you play me this week, I'm gonna play you next week, right? Because think about this. Blacks were in the Republican Party.
Jim Clyburn, that's his name. Jim Clyburn.
Right, right. Blacks were in the Republican Party up until FDR for the most part. And many of them have remained in there. Even the ones that remain in there, they know what's going on, but they still, we still whatever. But so the Republican Party was the party of Black folks. The Democratic Party was the party of the Klan.
That's right.
Up comes FDR.
The Dixiecrats. Sure was.
And they start
No
to
doubt
flip
about
the
it.
script, right? So from 1945 to 1968, when Johnson gave the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, and the Dixiecrats now leave the party completely and go over to the Republican Party, and they flip sides. But it's still Democrats and Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
We need our own independent voice.
That's right.
We need to speak in our own language.
Yeah.
And about our own issues, devoid of anything that they do. And if we can put, because you don't need a majority, you need a solid minority. And if you could put 10 people in the Senate, and if you could put 20 people in the House, believe you me, we can control them.
You can change it, right?
Change everything, right? And so that the labor movement has to be afraid of breaking with the Democratic Party because they can't do nothing without us. And we just bore witness to that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because the working class, even though the leadership is saying, hey, this one is better than that one.
They went right out there and voted for Trump.
They went right out there and voted for Trump. Because you know what, man? I ain't seen nothing because Obama disappointed them. Let me tell you something. When those workers in Erie, Pennsylvania, 18% win over Romney, right? And over Romney and the one from Arizona there.
Right, the one that died, yeah.
But died, God rest the dead, right?
Both
of them in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Yes,
McCain. Yeah.
Hillary comes and lose by 2. A whole complete shift. So Barack disappointed. We elected this brother, man. We thought he was going to come up in here and do some gangster stuff. Turns out he's just as bad as the rest of these white folks that we've been electing all these years. So Trump comes and says, listen, man, I'm rich. I don't really need nothing. And I'm not a part of this. That's what we want. Right? They were disappointed and they kicked him out. Biden comes. Biden did some things. I will never take that away from him, but not sufficient.
But they ran a character assassination on him. In this last year.
Yeah, they did.
Put his mistakes to get him out of there. Them corporations didn't want it. Want it because he was walking the picket line. They didn't want that.
They didn't want that. You just said something right there. When he did that, he signed. They think it's that debate. That's when he signed his death warrant.
That's what it was. And then they came out, and it's astounding to see how, with these programs, the TikToks and all this stuff that they have, how deeply they reach into the white working class and middle class.
Oh yeah,
and have control over their thinking and stuff. Because things right in front of your face that you're experiencing, but on TV and in your social media thing on your phone is saying something else, and you going along with that, regardless of what your experience is.
Yes, that's right.
So they targeted him, character assassination, and lies.
Yeah,
to get him out of there.
Yeah, they couldn't afford to leave him there because even though he was subservient to the military,
he was representing a section of the ruling class. But
he was still
this right wing is stronger.
I mean, remember that he stood up and said that the workers for Amazon
deserve a union. Yeah.
What?
He did. leaned in and said, instead of you guys pay your fair share of taxes and pay these workers more, you're making billions of dollars. You ain't gonna be affected by it. They didn't want to hear that.
What Bezos said.
They didn't want to hear that. So yeah.
And this is why, Sean O'Brien, our general president, going with Donald Trump. If Donald Trump was going to say to Bezos, let me tell you something, you better go on and sign you a contract with the Teamsters, right? Doesn't do that. And he's not going to get that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's a reason to say, I'm going along with this oligarch right here because I'm going to pick up 1 million new members, right? I'm not sure that's true, but as a business transaction, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not going to get that.
Business unionism. No, you're not going to get that.
You're not going to get that. You're not even going to get that
program.
Right?
They already told you.
And let me tell you something.
I think 2025, they laid it out.
They fired a cartoonist at the Washington Post. The Washington Post has lost about 10 million customers in 2 years because of Bezos. And they just fired this cartoonist because she made this cartoon of the lower part of Trump's body, right? With Bezos and all of them giving him bags of money, on their knees handing out bags of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they fired her. She has won like a Pulitzer Prize or whatever.
I hadn't seen that anywhere, but that's interesting. I hadn't heard about that.
It.
Mm-hmm.
They crushed it because freedom of the press is dead.
Oh yeah,
because they own CNN.
They own it all.
They own it all.
No question about it.
They own it all.
Get nothing through there.
So if you're getting your news from any of those things and you're not reading outside of that circle, you're being hoodwinked.
Right, totally manipulated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had this comedian, Bill Maher. And so my friend says, man, I had to turn it off. I said, wow, let me go watch a repeat of this thing. And Bill Maher calls into question whether or not the fire chief in LA was the best person to do the job because she was a lesbian. And he's saying, well, did they hire her because she was the best candidate? Or did they hire her the best lesbian candidate? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Once you put that question on the table, you have already undermined her.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
What that was for.
So nothing about we built a city in the middle of a gas range, right? With no water, dry ground everywhere, right? I mean, there was a worse fire in 2018. But the mayor was white. The fire chief was probably a man. So nobody's asking no question about this. So this is the second worst fire, right? Oh, well, why was you in Ghana? Well, hell, did they think I knew the fire was going to start tomorrow?
Man, when I saw that, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, oh, man,
But this is the distraction of how they play us,
right? Yeah.
But it's BS because, this whole fire thing, not to, don't lose your train of thought there, but blaming her, there's no way anyone could have predicted the level of this type of fire starting. Whether she had promised not to go to Ghana or not to go overseas or whatever, she may have made a mistake in that or whatever. But even if she had been there wasn't going to be
wasn't going to
change nothing.
Right about that.
I'm the mayor.
She's black and the firefighter is a woman.
First woman mayor, first black woman mayor.
Right.
Of Los Angeles.
Right.
Yeah. Now I wasn't a fan of Karen Bass. That wasn't my.
Yeah, she's pretty mainstream. More or less.
She's way mainstream. Yeah. When they say mainstream, they got her picture up like that. She's mainstream, but you can get right.
Yeah.
And they assault her because she's black, because she's a woman, right?
Yeah.
So he brings on the white guy that lost to her. Oh, well, this is what I would have done, and I would have done this, well, hell, man. I could tell you the same things too.
Right.
Right? You're not caught up, right? So we could say anything, right? But this is how, and this is a part of the process where even the so-called Democratic Party people that he's supposed to be are pushing this particular line because they want white people in leadership all the time. No black should lead. They don't want no black quarterbacks.
They did. Well, that started to change, but
Yeah,
you know,
I
they
mean,
did the
you
same.
look
They
at
did the
that
same
now.
thing with
No,
this
but
woman
they
that
don't
was
want it. They don't want it. It's going backwards.
this woman that was the FBI director. And when this thing broke out, where the guy drove
In Louisiana.
NOLA, where he drove the truck through there and all of that stuff. They were so racist and sexist, right? Openly and in front of everybody. And you had a black woman there. You know, I'm not no fan of the FBI, but they had a black woman there that was supposed to be the regional director over that. She
That's
couldn't
right.
even get a word in edgewise,
That's right.
you know, say anything or feel confident because they had been undermining her in those meetings. Well,
Yeah.
what about this? Did you do this? And what about that? And blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, until they could bring in a white male from outside of NOLA, from someplace else to step in and say, okay, we got this thing under control now. You know, and they didn't come up with anything more
That's
than
right.
when it was just her standing up there.
That's right.
But you know, this is the kind of stuff that goes on, and this is an openly misogynistic, sexist movement and culture that they're promoting and that they represent right now.
And it's on both sides.
Yeah.
Both
Oh yeah, on both sides, no question about it. This sister Yvette has her hand up.
Yeah, she got her hand up. Go ahead, sis.
Yeah, I just was gonna speak on the stuff going on in California because you know the conspiracies are because you know you got Newsom now, you got this white man now who really could have had some stuff to take care of, you know, legislative wise. They could have fixed some things in order for the fire not to be as it is now. But now you got the, you know, the ladies here and the sister here that we can throw under the bus. Because in reality, y'all want this smart city. So if we burn all this stuff down, we can get what we want. Because that's all he talking about and skinning and grinning about it, ready for the Olympics to come in 28. He all skinning and grinning because what they done accomplished looked like, you know, it was just, oh, the fire can't, but it could have been something done beforehand, so it wouldn't be looking like this now if they would have put the things in place that all the, you know, the fire hydrants not working and all. Like if y'all would have, you know, did something about your infrastructure, things that they could have handled years ago, been complaining about stuff that could have been fixed, it would have been done. But y'all waited to this time. You know, timing is everything, and stuff is not a coincidence. You know, I don't think, but just looking at it like that, because all of a sudden this smart city gonna appear after all this
Karen
stuff.
Bass just got there, so you know
exactly. But that's all the people
It don't matter.
Educated gonna see. They're gonna be like, oh, that's who was there.
Yeah.
Nah, what about them 10 white men that was there before that?
No, it don't matter.
Right.
It don't matter. That's the dilemma that we have to really be guarding against, right? Because you know, if you watch this whole DEI thing, that somebody would come along and say, well, and I'm asking people, I said, is Condoleezza Rice DEI? Was Colin Powell DEI? That guy that got 4 stars and went to different wars, was he DEI? You know, the kid that played quarterback for the Commanders yesterday, is that DEI? You know, where does it start and where does it end? Because every time we show up someplace,
yes,
DEI.
you attempt to diminish me,
right,
talent, by saying, "Oh, that's a DEI affirmative action," and your attempts to roll this thing back. And let me tell you something. I warned people from years ago that this day was going to come, right? And I tell you, going back into things, organizations that we're a part of who shall remain nameless, when I said to them, we need to start putting money together to support our own educational institutions, because this day was going to come. Right.
Class infrastructure.
Yes, they're actually if you have 20 million right now and you have a scholarship for Black women, they're going to sue you for giving that scholarship. Your own money, right? Not their money, right? There is a very sinister thing taking place. And they have the uneducated. This been long. They say they think Trump didn't start this.
That's right.
This been going on for a
long before Trump.
This been going on for a long time. This is just now the manifestation
Right.
Of
Of all
years of
that.
work that they've done.
Years of work, right.
of the years of work that started from back with Nixon and work. Let me tell you something. I saw them lauding President Carter. President Carter did a thing called deregulation.
Mm-hmm.
And now we can fly to Florida for $89.
And that's true. I saw
true.
that.
You know what's wrong? You destroyed pensions. You destroyed health care. You destroyed wages. You destroyed unions in the trucking industry. They took all these you see all these guys, they're slaves to a truck. They think I got my own business. No, you don't. No, you don't. That truck owns you. You don't own the truck. The truck owns you.
You
Because
got
when
that
you
right,
stop
brother.
driving, you ain't making no money. See, when I worked for UPS as a truck driver, when I stopped driving for 3 weeks, I'm still making money. It's called vacation. You understand what I'm saying? Now they turn these guys, I got my own truck. No. All those jobs, 2 million truck drivers was under a union contract. Destroyed. So you could fly to California for $89. No, you shouldn't be on that plane. You should be on a Greyhound bus. Right? You should have been, because that's where you used to be.
That's right. That unfortunately. But none of them that get into those positions, that presidential thing, there's only so much they can do in there, because it's set up already what interest is serving. And whether you think different about it or not, you can't just do whatever you think.
Right.
It ain't established like that. You have some leeway, but not, not something that they consider to be so, they call everything socialist, but not anything that's gonna change.
Probably the last real president we had, and he wasn't no perfect guy, was FDR. Probably the last one that had some liberty.
Yeah, and they had a conspiracy to murder him.
Yeah,
they were gonna kill him, but they didn't.
Wow.
Didn't work that time. But
let me read this statement, and we can go to our next point I want to go to, especially with tomorrow being what it is. So we got Kim Vargas. She said, "It always gets worse before it gets better. Maybe this is what we need to join forces." And the reason why I want to read that is because we talked about earlier about everybody coming together, having these meetings, general strike and things. And recently, the SEIU went back into the AFL-CIO, joining forces, if you will. And so I just want to get you guys, outlook on, was that a good move? Bad move?
Hold on for a second. Leaving one last one in the original.
We'll talk about that. I got something for that too. I got something for that we're going to segue into, because I'm going to read something that was asked at the Martin Luther King AFL-CIO conference last week. Chris, I showed it to you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read it once we get through this, because it's going to be a question that people are going to have to think about, and especially Teamsters in our role in this joining together when it comes to fighting the oligarchy and the anti-worker policies that Trump is going to bring. So, but I want to get back to that original question. The SEIU coming back into the AFL. I think they left with the Teamsters some years ago, but the Teamsters, we're still out there, and we'll get to that later on. But I just want to ask everybody here, was that a good move, bad move, or we just don't know? Sister Ashaki, what you think?
you came
from the SEIU. You did some work with them.
Yeah, I worked for a number of years for SEIU. That's where I first started in Chicago. When I was young, I was a kid in my 20s. But what I want to say about this is, one of the problems that I haven't studied this to see what the basis of them coming together was supposed to be about. So I hadn't gotten to it yet, but I am going to look into it. But what I want to say about it is, even when the various unions broke up into, the different federations, or, this one not working with that one, it was done really without the input of the masses of the workers
That's right.
based in a program that, would improve the conditions for workers in those federations. So this coming together at the top and, it's splitting at the top and then coming back together at the top, it's not really based on a deep involvement of the rank and file on the shop floor and being able to raise what is going to be the benefit of, us working more closely together, with Teamsters and, SEIU and UE and whoever, all working together around what is the program that brings us all together. And that's what I haven't seen or heard. Nothing against the sister that emerged as, the president of SEIU. I don't know. I've heard positive things about her, but I don't know much. But it's always this top-down kind of stuff and orientation that doesn't really, change or move the interests of working people and improve the situation on the shop floor so that there's a working class consciousness and broader questions that are being raised, from the rank and file up. We don't have that, and I haven't heard or seen that in this instance. So I'm not convinced at this point for myself that this is going to be very meaningful, for workers as far as moving forward. It may appear to be, but there's a lot of corruption and mafia and all this stuff in a lot of unions, and particularly, the worst of it, the business unionism and the very, very conservative nature of the leadership, still most of it, white male. But if it's not grounded in, from the bottom up, moving the rank and file and their input, into it, I'm not convinced that it's going to be meaningful. So, but I need to study it a lot more, and I just hadn't gotten to that yet. But it's a great
Right.
question,
So,
very interesting.
Before we go to Chris or Yvette or anybody, you said the bottom up a few times. I know what that is, but I think for the people that's listening, I think it'd be good for them to hear it coming from you on what that bottom up looks like. Because again, you've been an organizer forever, and a lot of the trench work that you have done started at is based on the bottom up, right? So just kind of walk us through what that looks like and what that means, especially for working class people.
Well, in order for workers to have real power to impact conditions around them, our trade unions and labor movement in general, it has to be based in the leadership of the rank and file. The workers, in the workplace, on the shop floor that, are able to articulate what's needed. There has to be an avenue for them, and organization is their primary avenue. But if it's not coming from, their own assessment of the program that's needed, and workers know a lot on the shop floor. They have a lot of knowledge, a lot of information, but it's never organized in such a way that, it comes out and can serve their best interests. And help move things forward, and the common sense things that they see and that they know. So bottom up means the rank and file involvement and leadership in developing the direction, the policies. Right now in this country, most of our trade unions are top down. Even if they're having elections, it's top down leadership telling people. And in the most conservative unions, it's just off the charts, ridiculous. But even in, the ones that attempt to have some input from the rank and file, it's not organized in such a way that the leadership is coming from the base of the workers themselves on the shop floor, their involvement, because their knowledge of the things that are going on around them and that they have acquired through the work that they've done is not tapped into and used as a guide, to what direction we take and what's needed. And so that's what I mean by bottom up. And that's always been our position in Black Workers for Justice and the organizing that we've done. And that was one of the reasons why we unified to some degree with UE, because they had that basic philosophy, not in the same way that we would have it as BWFJ, but there was recognition of, rank and file involvement and decision making and leadership and being able to push programs. And so this is what, if we could organize ourselves on that basis, and that's anywhere, I don't care where you go all over the world. If it's this same top down stuff, it may sound like a progressive union, like they talk about in Europe, they're so progressive, blah, blah, blah. But it's the same capitalist unions, that aren't challenging, the conditions. So, that's what's meant by that. And it's very, very, very important. And that is one of the primary reasons why, there's racism and sexism in the trade union movement. But those things are matter as well. But the leadership of the rank and file at the base, from the bottom up, the workers themselves having real input into the direction and the decisions, that's what's meant by, the bottom up and grassroots, and,
Right.
that being the need. And that creates the power, because then, the workers can implement, from their own basis, to move things forward. And that's been, that there's been a deliberate organizing of trade unions so that you don't have that. And that's the business unionism that,
Right.
pretty much characterizes most unions today. And that's why we always say, I'll end on this, we're building, new trade unions in the South, social movement unions, that are based in leadership of the rank and file, their involvement, their education, their knowledge, their interests.
That's good. Chris? SEIU joining the AFL. What you think?
Well, I spoke on this many, many years ago when the split took place. And I simply identified it as some white man that couldn't get along with some other white man and got upset with each other. And it hasn't changed. But just think about this for a second, that the principal of the SEIU International is a Black woman. And she had to choose whether she wanted to continue to live in a house with our General President O'Brien or go back home. Do I live with a Klansman or do I go back home? And she went back home. And the AFL, I have to remind people, it's not a union.
Right.
It's really a lobbying group. So it's an amalgamation of all of them.
Right.
Lobbying. And if you get close enough to them, it can be disconcerting and disappointing sometimes, because they become so much a part of the inside the beltway behavior.
That's right. You can't tell the difference between them and the bosses.
Yeah. Because that's what they live with every day.
That's the same.
Yeah. Once you get there, your reality of where you came from dies. You understand what I'm saying? Because that's the pinnacle of where you can go in the labor movement. And I know I have to maintain consciously my connection with the rank and file, because it's so easy to get caught up.
Yeah, because that's how it's structured.
And the going out and the going here and the meeting this and the meeting that if you don't consciously hold on to your roots, hold on to that door that you came out of, leave it open, right? You can lose your path. So I can see why she would go back. I think that, because I've had this conversation with prior administrations about going back to the AFL. In fact, I had the conversation with our current general president. And, I think that they should go back and they should vote for Sister Sarah Nelson to be the head of the AFL, because at the very least, she doesn't seem to be too far removed from the door she walked out of to the international. You understand what I'm saying? But now they merged with the CWA, so I'm not sure what that dynamic is at this point. But I think that there are symbolisms, and going back is a symbolic gesture of unity. Now, I don't expect them to become radical in any way, because they've never been radical. But that symbolism has its place as we go forward in this struggle to try to deal with this this mighty oligarchy. Let me tell you, just think about it. That one man is worth 400 billion. He could spend 50 million a day, every day, and never go broke and make it back before the end of the day. By the time he spent the 50 million, he got 50 million coming back. He spent 250 million in the last month of an election.
Sure did.
Didn't blink an eye. Right?
Sure did.
So we are up against a worse situation than when Rockefeller and the Carnegies and the Mellons were, because you had way more independent sources of information than you have today, right? Every newspaper, every television station, every TikTok thing, 90%, 95% of everything you see or hear or read comes from 6 companies. Right? I mean, so we have to be very careful about what the minefield looks like, because they could turn around and make you into anything. Oh, hooker? You mean the child molester? Right? And by the time you went to court and sued,
Right.
even after you got a settlement, anybody leaving their kids at your house?
No.
No. Hey, hooker, no, watch my kid. No. That ain't happening, right? So it's so easy to destroy.
Yeah, it is.
Right? And you can't touch them because they're flying above the clouds. Right? When have you, I mean, we used to have these demonstrations at Bezos's house in or one of his houses in New York for the Amazon workers. You know, I ain't never seen nobody come out and say, hey, stop the noise. They probably can't even hear us.
He wasn't even there. Probably.
Yeah, exactly. Bring the helicopter. I'm out of here. Right. So we have the type of work to do that Ashaki and them have been doing for years. And I tell you, I say this all the time, and I think if I knew it was going to happen, I would have done something about it. But I wish you guys, and I wish that Saladin was here now. Let me tell you, you talk about an intellect, a brother that could give you some analysis of what of this January 19th, what this is in terms of the 20th and the 21st. There could be no brighter voice than that brother right there. We missed it.
That is so true. That is so true. It's a loss.
Yeah, it's a dramatic loss to the movement of the working class, but we have to carry on.
Yeah.
But I think I think you need to have those symbolic gestures of solidarity, and her going back made sense. It did not make sense for the breakup in the first place. And there's actually I got to dig up some tape, but there's actually a tape of me describing what had happened when it happened.
Wow.
It was horrible then, and it didn't make sense, and it was
right. What did it gain the working class?
Yeah, nothing. We were going to organize, and because this was the whole thing. These guys don't want to organize, and when we break away, we're going to organize everybody. They ain't organize a soul.
And they got millions and upon millions of dollars just sitting that are not being, there's no institutions being built in the working classes throughout this country to do anything with all that money they have.
Where's our voice? Why do we end up on Fox talking to people who don't really carry our line, and in order to speak, because Fox ain't bringing you unless you're carrying a line that is palatable to them.
Right. You ain't getting on there.
Get an invitation, right? Not on a national level. You might get on a local station, but you're not getting on that national news program. And so for you, so when you find that you are always talking on Fox and nowhere else, it starts to say too much about you. You understand what I'm saying? And why are you now again the only one not in the AFFL? Because we've been through this before. This ain't new, right? Because for a long time it was Jackie Presser that brought us back into the AFFLs from 1957 and thereabouts. We weren't in the AFFL.
It's mafia stuff.
Yeah. But you know, one mafia guy went out and one brought us back in. But nonetheless, we were outside of the AFFL for a long, long time because they had kicked us out because
the whole corruption and all that.
yeah. And as if to say they weren't corrupt either, but
Right.
not calling the kettle black. But we need to have money in one pot.
Yeah.
If we're going to have any sense of a united direction, right? And people think it's everybody. It ain't never everybody, right? But we need to have a solid majority or a very motivated minority. That minority can achieve the same thing. We need to be like the Marines in that sense, the few and the proud. And we need to be talking to people like Ashaki. We need to be talking to people like Jaribu in Mississippi. We need to be making those linkages because they're doing stuff that we're not doing, where we ain't even aware of, right? And we need to build that base if we're going to talk about having some cohesive pushback against the oligarchy in 2028.
Sister Yvette, what you think about this SEIU joining back up?
Well, I would definitely have to agree with Sister Ashaki if it's, the membership who brought it back or said, hey, we want to get back with them, sounds like it's a good thing. But if it's just the top doing the top stuff, for show and for the optics, it looks good, I guess. But if it's really gonna be something that's gonna be effective, it'll be what we see in the time will tell. But hopefully, I mean, in a time like this, we need to be united.
Exactly.
But the ones at the rank and file do need to understand what's going on and why. Because just because you're at the top uniting, if your people down here, that's paying all these dues don't know what's going on, it's not going to be a successful fight because we need to be educated from all the way through in order to be able to fight what we got to come up against here in the next few years. So yeah, I was applauded, of course, seeing two females getting together at the top because I know Liz
right
as well, but and love Sarah, so I know her too. But it's it'd be great, if we really getting it from the bottom up and everybody tagging up, that's what we need to do. So I'm sure ours don't have that same thought process, but probably 2026 should take care of that portion and get us where we need to be, hopefully here soon.
So I got two questions that I'm going to read, and I'm going to open this up to everybody. We got Big Dog, Demetria, Mama Spears. I'm gonna save the juicy one for last, but so
I can't wait to hear that one.
Yeah. And this one, and this is why I saved it for the end, man, because I really want to hear, especially Teamsters, and then Sister Ashaki, you get from an outside looking in. What do you think? This how can we rebound from this? But I'm gonna read the first one. Now, these questions were asked at a panel down at the Martin Luther King conference that the National AFL-CIO held last week. I think it's an annual conference they have around MLK holiday, and I think because of the whole inauguration, they did it a week early. And there was a few questions, but these two questions, man, they really stuck out and they hit home. So the first one is this: why do you think the working class voted against their own interests by voting for Donald Trump and other politicians that will work against them? So I'm gonna start with Big Dog. Why do you think, especially our Teamster brothers and sisters, why do you think they voted against their own interests as far as pensions and, having the right to strike and having the right to stand up to your boss? Why do you think working class people voted against their own interests by voting for Donald Trump or any other politician for that matter that goes against their working class interests?
Well, I think it was lack of I guess the education of what was really going on, and the fact that they make pretty good money, and they felt that he was gonna take care of them. But it's just just misleading. How do you think you on the same level as somebody that's hanging with millionaires, and that's who their circle of friends are? So that a lot of it was that white supremacy stuff. A lot of it is the fact that they just didn't believe in letting a black woman run things.
Okay. Mama Spears. Oh, there you go. You gotta hit unmute.
You okay? Go ahead. Now, what was the question? I'm sorry.
Right. So
what was
the question was, why did so many working class people vote against their own interests by voting for Donald Trump and any other politician?
Well, I agree with what I did hear a little bit what Big Dog said, but at the same time, I think because they didn't really want a woman in office, and because she's black. That's what I think. That's my own personal. Yeah, so I think that. Go ahead.
So we got that they voted against their own interest because of her being a black woman is what I'm hearing from both.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So Sister Shaw, what you got?
I'm going to agree with everyone with they voted because she was a black woman. But I mean, I'm kind of a conspiracy theorist too.
Okay, what's the conspiracy theory?
How do we know that all the votes were counted? So we're never in the rooms. That goes for presidential elections, and that also go for Teamster elections as well. We're never in the room. You think you are, but you're not. So how do we know that all the votes were counted?
Now I gotta say something about a Teamsters election. Now at a local, I'm quite sure they do it everywhere. Now you do have the right to be there while the ballots are counted.
Well, yeah, that's why she said what she said. We were there, you there, but we had some situations down here where.
Well, see, I don't know. You're right. Your situation may be different. Okay, I got you. I'm gonna leave that alone.
We go to the circus every day. We go to the circus every day.
Trouble, man. I see y'all get ready to walk me down and out, and I don't want to go down. It's okay.
Yeah, So my thing is, to me, as and like I said, I'm a conspiracy theorist. Just because you see it, don't mean that you've seen it. If you want to hide something, the best place to do it is in plain sight.
I hear you. Hey man, listen, that's how the enemy got Eve to eat that apple. I hear you. Okay, I got you.
Look at the man.
Okay. Let's go to who I missed.
I would say you got my wife up here saying that's why did Eve eat the apple? Was it Adam? Because he got the apple stuck in his throat still right now.
Woo! Man, y'all getting down. Okay.
But besides all the other things that were mentioned, the misinformation. Because just like she said, the stuff you thought you saw, you didn't see. It was so much AI going on these on social media. It was so much stuff coming at people, and it's been years of stuff. People, and you get so used to seeing. When I see a little fake AI stuff, I get off. I don't want to see that because I don't want to get desensitized. We so desensitized by stuff that we get used to seeing it, so we don't question it. And when I see that little stuff, I don't want to. Anything say AI, I know we're gonna get forced upon it in a minute, where we can't get away from it because they trying so hard with everything we got. But I try to kick it to the side. I'm like, I don't want that stuff. I ain't using it. I ignore it. But a lot of people were just getting. That's where they getting their information. Like you say, social media is most people's news source and everything. So if you something come across there, you just take it as gold. Most people don't research to see if it's true or not, and so that's what they're going on. They voting on that. Well, it says. he did this, so he did it. So I'm not with that. So I'm gonna vote against him. Just nonsense. So the combination of, like you say, the sexism, the racism, misogyny, all that played a part in our election, but also misinformation and just straight up uneducated voters who thought they knew something, but they really didn't know. And so it was a whole combination. I lean heavy on the we don't like that black girl, but it's a whole lot of combination of what was going on to on top of that. So yeah, but you always gonna call your mama, but y'all wasn't studying us at the ballot box, but you be looking for the one who brought you there.
I hear you. All right.
Okay,
Sister
so let me
Ashaki.
I wanted to just speak briefly on this as well. Appreciating everything that I've heard from everybody saying. Very interesting. But one of the things that sometimes we talk about the white workers, white supremacy, and white workers vote against their own interests because of white attitude. But it's white supremacy is really more than that. It's the white workers get privileges, material benefit, from aligning themselves with the powers that be, and not aligning themselves with other oppressed sectors of the class. They identify with that, and it's important to understand that they get material benefit from it. And what does that mean? So, for example, if a black family is making $40,000 a year, a white family in the same situation will be making $60,000 a year, and so they have a lot more money, to go to pay $200 a ticket for NFL games, and all these different things. Their schools are different. If they need to go over to the bank and take out a loan, nobody's looking at them askew, like, you must be out of your friggin' mind, coming here asking for money. They have access to that. So their white skin privilege is material. They get something out of it. And one of the reasons, in my opinion, why they've been so angry, supposedly, over the years, is because they were losing some of the privileges that they had been getting when, these corporations who have no allegiance to anyone, when they started taking these jobs out to these other areas and, blah, 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 to other parts of the world, the globalization and all that stuff, so they can make more profit, and, left behind, the white working class. And that was Biden's thing. I'm going to bring this back to the white working class. You got to give some to these other folks, black folks or whoever, but, I'm going to bring that back in order to assuage the anger. But it's important to understand that, the way the system is set up, they are getting something more than just the ideology of whiteness. They get privileges and material benefits from aligning. And this is how they've always done, and so there's a small percentage that reject that. And it takes sacrifice and rejection of the system in order to align yourselves with the most oppressed parts of the working class, the black working class, or, the brown working class, or whatever, or with women, so they want to bring all of those privileges back and re-improve them and reestablish them. And that's what Trump is representing. So, we there's a reason why, this, and they have the money to do it, to buy them off. I mean, they was giving $1 million away if you voted for Trump during the election. $1 million. So this is some of what we're confronted with, and what this means, why the white working class, the majority of it, goes with capitalism, goes with what seems to be against their interest, because capitalism is giving them the benefits to stick with them.
Right. Chris, before we go to our next question, what you got on this one?
So I think Sister Shaki said it 100%, that we believe that they're voting against their interests. They're voting against the interests of the working class. They're not voting against the interests of white skin privilege. And
Mhm.
this you see this particularly in the unorganized job places where
Mhm.
if you go to the Nissan plant in what's it, Mississippi, uh, the white workers have the better jobs. The black workers have the worst jobs, right? And the white worker chooses not to have a pension, chooses not to have better wages, because if you bring the union in, then you're going to have this seniority thing, and my white skin privilege is going to wear out. And I'd rather not have a pension. I'd rather not have good health benefits in order to maintain that privilege. And so when people are thinking, oh, they wouldn't go about pensions, nah. When you see that with that little snake thing about don't tread on me,
Mhm.
that's that's because in order to get billionaires, you got to take money from a lot of people, and they've been feeling that. But the guy who's sucking up the money is telling them, no, man, them immigrants is killing you. Like some guy crossed the border who walked 1,500 miles, got to New York and took something from somebody besides a bed. I just need to get some sleep, get off my feet. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And so they teach them this, and the union is actually not counteracting the story, and where it doesn't have enough time, right? Because we're in an organizing drive.
Yeah.
You really need to be there. You really need to have people that's there for 5 years, 10 years, chopping
That's right. That's
down
right.
before you have that election.
That's right. Yeah,
Because you
not
have to
coming in
defeat,
for,
you have to defeat,
3 months to
yeah,
run
you
some
have to defeat
election
the foolishness.
Right.
bullshit.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me,
Yeah. No,
my
that's
language.
exactly what
No,
it
no,
is.
you're right.
You know, Joe Madison says, if bullshit comes from a real place, right? Because we used to buy 10 pounds of cow manure to go and do it because bull manure does not help grow things, right? Because there's too much testosterone in there, what have you. And so
Mhm.
a guy would sell you 9 pounds of cow manure and put a pound of bull manure in there. But if you know your thing, when you open it up, you're like, whoa, what is this bullshit? Now, that's where it comes from. It's actually a real thing. So,
Oh my God. Oh my
So
God.
it comes from a real place.
now this last question, this one is a doozy. And when it was sent to me, man, my heart just kind of dropped because I'm a Teamster. I've been a Teamster. This is my 26th year. And as the many faults that we do have, we do have a lot of good being a Teamster, man. We make top dollar. We have some good benefits, and there's some good things about
It's
being a
better to be in the
Teamster.
union, no question
Right.
about it.
Nothing is better than being in a union if you're a working class person. But this election has kind of isolated us from the rest of the labor movement, right? Whether you think O'Brien should have went to the RNC or not, whether you think, he should have been playing footsies, whatever the case may be. Right now we're kind of in limbo. The SEIU goes back into the AFL. Chris said it best. We're kind of like the only one stuck in this change to win. We're kind of like isolated. And what does that mean for the Teamsters? What does that look like? What does that mean? So here was a question that was asked at the Martin Luther King conference at the AFL, National AFL-CIO down in
Yeah, I got
Texas
it too.
last week.
I got somebody said it to me too, so I ain't gonna say
Oh, you
nothing.
got it too? So here it is. How will we work with unions like Teamsters and their more Trump Republican-friendly leadership like Sean O'Brien to push our collective labor agenda forward and make sure we are at the table? I'm gonna read that one more time. Again, now this is at a conference of trade union people who have decided that we have to stick up, and fight against Trump, Elon Musk, the Bezos, the employers, you know, this is why we're here. We're here to honor Martin Luther King, who some could say he was more of a labor leader than a civil rights activist. You could say that he marched on picket lines. He went down to Memphis because two brothers got smashed in the trash truck, and he was there to, you know, advocate for them. And, you know, here we are. And this is a question that these folks wanted to ask to a panel, and I'm going to read it again. How will we as everybody else, everybody else, how will we work with unions like Teamsters and their more Trump Republican friendly leadership like Sean O'Brien to push our collective labor agenda forward, and make sure we are at the table? So I'm gonna start off with Big Dog again. How, as a Teamster, how does that make you feel? Because Big Dog, you've been a Teamster for about what, 50 years? He may not be there. We're gonna skip Mama Jackie.
Yeah, I'm there. I was trying to get
Oh,
unmuted.
okay, yeah. Now that question being asked. Now, how long have you been a Teamster?
This year it'd be 49 years.
Right. So I was close.
Yeah, he was close.
I
Oh,
was
yeah,
close.
he old, man.
So
I'm very old.
Right. You've been
Yeah,
a
I'm pro
Teamster
97.
for.
This year I'll be 504 in teams in dog years. I've been
That
around a
season,
couple of years, so
Right.
we
So
get
so
seasoned.
50
yeah,
years
so
being a Teamster, and now other labor organizations are asking, how can we work with the Teamsters? How can we trust them with our, you know, our pro-worker agenda? How can we know that they're going to, you know, do what is necessary when it comes to fighting for, you know, worker protections and things like that? When we have a, let me read it one more time. When we have unions like the Teamsters and their more Trump Republican friendly leadership like Sean O'Brien. So as a person, a member who's been around 50 years in this organization, how does that make you feel knowing that other labor organizations feel that way about, you know, a organization that you have given 5 decades to?
yeah. Well, the only thing I can say and be honest with it is the fact that it ain't a perception. It is what it is. You know, for the people that I've worked with all these many years and people that were going against their own interests and stuff, it was just crazy for a Teamster to try to stand up against, like you say, their own interests. As far as them, we trying to work with other unions, we need to work with our own membership to educate them.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, like, we need to get leadership in there that's not, you know, union unfriendly. I mean, as far as their own union, as far as looking out for their own union. So we have to have somebody in office that's going to be let the membership know now. We're not going to lay in bed with people that's going to be against you. We're not going to be siding with people that that not have your best interest. But then it goes back again what Chris said. The largest voting bloc is the ones that don't vote, and we do not vote. It's like when we did that straw poll. I got 18,000 members in Local 63. Less than 100 voted on that straw poll about who to support. Long as they're getting their paycheck, long as they're getting their raises, long as they're getting their paid vacations and stuff, they don't care.
Right.
They complacent. They do not care. It's the ones like that's sitting in this panel that we're talking. We care because we see what's going on. We see what's going to be available for our children and our family in the future. And you know, you beat the dead horse, just continuously telling them, dude, don't you understand that this is not for you? You're sitting up with a millionaire that says, hey, if you go on strike, get rid of them. We don't have any other leverage as far as doing something when we want to get a better situation, other than shutting it down. So now if you shut it down and you chance losing your job, why would you side with somebody that has that attitude? So I'll be honest with you. I don't pray, man. That's all I can do about it because it's just beyond me, you know, the attitude of the people that don't have their own best interest, you know, in front of them.
Sister Shaw.
You know, I'm a newly elected steward, so I'm having my own battles with just even being able to perform my steward duties, because I refuse to um, do what I'm supposed to do as far as representing the members. So since I won't be a yes person, or if I don't turn a blind eye to how they are breaking the contract and just doing whatever they want to do, including to me, they doing it to me as well. Then you know, hey, they act like you're not there, or they try to find some kind of way to come at you or whatever. But as far as this Trump stuff with Sean O'Brien, being in the South, you know, especially being in Georgia, I hate to say it, but we see it every day. You know, we see it every day, and it's and for being a member and being a steward and being a Black woman, it's almost like you don't have no win. But we're gonna have to figure something out, because if we go, we can't even talk about going on the strike on the shop floor. They saying that's a work stoppage. You see what I'm saying? Like, especially in Georgia, in the building that I'm in. So it's crazy. But that Trump thing, I'm with Chris. I think it's gonna be something good. I think we're kind of expecting for something kind of bad, but I think this gonna work out, because if they all turn on each other, and I'm seeing it every day, they all turning on each other because they got to hold each other's lies and secrets on both ends. So if they all, I'm with you, Chris. I think that is this going to turn out to be something good, because like the sister said in the comments, it's got to get bad before it get better.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna be able to fight this fever off and get over COVID, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Come out, you know, come out with a healthy, clean body and be able to go outside. That was the saying that everybody was doing when they was able to go outside.
Yep.
So I think I really do believe in the fact that we will be able to come together, come to some kind of come to Jesus moment for everybody. It may not be a lot, but whatever we get, it's gonna definitely hit hard. And after this is over, when we clear out all of the junk and start over, because we will be able to. I think we'll be all right. But we gotta go through these trials and tribulations first. It ain't gonna be that long. And we can endure. We don't endure it all this time.
All right, sis. All right. Mama Spears, what you think about this, man? We got these unions, man, who they're concerned about us, and what we gonna do? Can we be trusted?
Okay, like I told you, I'm cooking. I'm in the kitchen. I'm back and forth.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But at the same time, that there's okay. At the same time, I'm listening to everybody. I agree with Big Dog. I agree with Miss Shaw. And like Big Dog has said earlier, that we have to come together. And you know, like he said, he pray about everything, and that's true, because I do too. I do have faith in, you know, things are going to change and things is going to get better with everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm trying to bake and cook at the same time, because that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm running back and forth.
All right. So, Brother Chris.
Yeah.
Brother Chris, nothing. I was gonna say something, but I changed my mind.
So one of the beauties of the Teamsters is local union autonomy, and the fact that we are probably the most bottoms-up union of the large industrial unions in the country. And that if you, I mean, I'm just going to use what happened recently. So the international fails to endorse Kamala Harris. But all the people on the board that refused to vote to endorse walk out that room, go back to their local unions, go back to their joint councils and endorse, right? So it really tells you that it's only one or two people on that board in which it's problematic, right?
Mm.
So I don't think if you think of local unions like Big Dogs Local, uh, uh, 728, that they're going to have a problem working with those local unions, which is who they work with anyway, right? And that people like our general president is going to find himself isolated. He won't notice it because, like America, they're so big in terms of their power that nobody shows you to your face that we don't like you anymore. But behind your back, we display ourselves. And so I don't think there's going to be any problem. If you look, we've been out of the AFL-CIO now for 15 years or thereabouts. We still go to Central Labor Council meetings every month. We still participate with the Central Labor Council. So it's really just a BS thing. It's similar to what happens in right to work states with these guys that can opt out. So the Teamsters are no different than these guys in the right to work states who opt out of the union. I don't want to pay dues, but as soon as I get in trouble, I'm calling the union. Understand what I'm saying? So there's something to be said. Our work has to be done, and I think Big Dog alluded to this, is that we need to have leadership that reflects the members' will, whatever that is. So certainly, I think if you go in certain areas and among certain people, the workers are confused about the relationships of race and sex and gender and orientation and what have you. And because there's this greater noise that's coming from every place else, it's all they hear. Oh, I'll give you a quick story. So one of my members, his wife has a transsexual friend, transgender, whatever that is.
Yeah, transgender.
Yeah, and they wanted to invite the transgender over to the house, and he goes, no, 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 can't happen, no, no, no. He has a neighbor, and he doesn't know that the neighbor is transgender.
Ooh.
Loves the neighbor cooks this, and what have you. Neighbor come on over to the house. Later on, he finds out. So I said, well, how are you dealing with the transgender woman now? And they said, oh, we get along just fine. I said, so then what you found out was, once you knew the person, it was just another human being. And he said, you're right. But what happened is that, how many people know somebody that's transgender? Very few. So when you start telling me, oh, the kid went to school at 8 o'clock and they came back home and they was transgender. What?
Yeah, them commercials was crazy.
But listen, man, if you're in the ignoramus world, this is what you get bombarded with, and you believe because you have no idea. You don't even know what transsexual. I talked to a guy at my supermarket, and he says that he was upset by critical race theory, and I said, "What is that?" Right? What's critical race theory? He says, "I don't know, but it's pissing me off." So lack of knowledge is being exploited, right? And we don't have a voice to infuse knowledge in those spaces every day, right? So we should have a channel on Sirius XM. We should have a channel on cable news, Labor should, that's infusing every day and counteracting these voices, right? If you think of the laws that were passed, so there used to be a fairness doctrine in media. if you brought on somebody from the left, so-called left, you had to bring on somebody from the so-called right. So you would hear this conversation in real time between the so-called left and the so-called right. Now you don't have that anymore, right? Then you change the law to allow Rupert Murdoch to come in and own and create this right-wing noise board called Fox News, right? And so that they could spew anything. I mean, just think of the fact that somebody who, I'm presuming that the news got to them, that Fox had to pay $780 million for lying, right? And that's still your source of information. I mean, that tells you something. And it tells you how powerful the concept of white privilege is in this country. How dangerous it is that people can look past their own interests to bathe in this thing and this privilege that really doesn't exist, because they the guy give you another $5 a month and you feel you're better than some other guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, really? Because if you really look at the statistics, blacks, in fact, as a group, have done better than whites as a group in the lower quarters. You know what I'm saying? So if you go into like upstate communities, if you go into rural communities where both of them exist, the blacks in those communities tend to be doing better, because you can't survive there unless you're doing good. You understand what I'm saying? And so they still believe. Remember the movie Rosewood?
Oh yeah.
When they were at the general store, the guy says, "Yeah, he got a piano in his house," right? And the guy's like, "All right, man, he got a piano." And he could play it too. And it was like, oh, what? You see the point I'm saying? And this just triggered them, right? So if you look at Rosewood, if you look at and it's point something in Mississippi, I don't remember the name now. If you look at Tulsa, Oklahoma, there were hundreds of areas. Wilmington, North Carolina, there's a place just outside of Durham, where they had a black community that was another Black Wall Street, right? And somebody came up with some story, and then the need to tear it up, right? But Ashaki pointed out early on, I think it was this, I think he mentioned, no, I think I heard it somewhere else. People should go back and look at the legislation that was passed by the newly freed Africans in America after the Civil War in South Carolina, in Georgia, in Alabama. Look at the laws.
That's right.
When you study that and teach white folks, this is the laws, you got something against this? They would all go like, no. I said, then what got you upset? You allowed the ruling class to make you believe that my freedom took something from you, when it took nothing from you, right? We have the power, but we don't have the time, because we don't have the space. And so even though supposedly the internet allows us, the internet is still controlled by the ruling class, right? I know I share some things on Facebook, and I think pops up and says, yeah, we removed it. I'm like, you removed it when I shared it? How come I got it from another guy? I mean, I didn't create it. You know what I'm saying? What's going on here, right? And I don't share, because there are things that I'm like, I'm gonna pass on that one, because sometimes you're not sure if these are facts, so and so you realize that they monitor who they want to, and they allow who they want to go through, right? But we don't have a Facebook. We don't have an Instagram. We don't have, and I'm saying, like, you can't tell me, because if you know the science behind these things, we were critical in the creation of these things, but we created for the ruling class. And we have to stop, and our unions have the resources to create the environment for us to do the education necessary, right? So we could perform on TikTok, we could perform on Instagram and get our message across if we want to. We could create our own Instagram, we could create our own TikTok.
Yeah.
We don't have to appeal to 150 million people. We need to appeal to 50 million. The 50 million people that could shut this country down and make every billionaire give up all their money.
Yeah. So, Sister Shaki, as a person on the outside looking in, you come from the SEIU, that's where you started. So how should we as Teamsters, how should we go about this question and especially in the viewpoint of how labor sees our leadership? Like how should we operate knowing that, not too many folks, not too many, unions really care for the Teamsters, because I go to a couple of meetings here and there, and they give you these looks like, man, you guys are the reason why Trump is where he's at, or something like that. You know what I mean? So how should we operate moving forward, knowing that, by and large, the labor movement sees us as, as not a friend. It's one thing, to your point, Chris, not to be in the affiliation of the AFL-CIO, but it's a whole nother thing when they look at you as, maybe an enemy, maybe we can't trust them, because, how does that work? What do we need to do to move beyond this as Teamsters?
My final thoughts on this, and I really appreciate these. These have been great questions that we've been talking about today. First thing is, and I know this came up with, the president of Teamsters going to the Republican National Convention and all that, and so forth, but they're not by themselves. I mean, just look at ILA, International Longshore Association. They just coming out with the, Trump helped us, resolve the, I went down to Mar-a-Lago and Trump helped us resolve the strike and blah, blah, blah. So this thing by themselves, the Teamsters ain't by themselves. There's a lot of, these very conservative unions are, doing this stuff. But for us on the ground, I think it still comes back to, how are we working with our rank and file? So how do we, as, oppressed regular grassroots people, working class people, organization is our greatest weapon. And so we got to figure out more and better levels of organization that we can enact to help us. But if we built organization, like you remember when they were trying to, these different unions, including Teamsters, there were all these caucuses that popped up that were wanting to fight, let's get these old guys out and get our guys in. They're not doing anything to change the nature of the union or from the bottom up. But it's, if we form a caucus, then we can elect our own better guys than them. And this was a big trend that was going on for years in a lot of the unions. But what if we built caucuses now that were uniting the rank and file of these different various unions, around the program of change that they see that's needed, that's going to benefit, working people from the bottom up. I think we always got to start with going back to, the question of organization, but the ranks and what kind of program are we talking about? What's going to be meeting the interests and needs of rank and file workers. And so if we're, I think we should be over the next few years calling for that, where, people are forming caucuses inside these unions, whether it's conservative or whatever, and then it's a matter of strategy and tactics, what kind of things you can raise, when, and how do you conduct these fights inside of unions on the shop floor. These are questions that we got to address. But if we, approach it that way, where more and more of the ranks are saying no to the top, this is not the direction that we want to go in. And we're organized enough to show it. And we're organized enough to unite with the ranks of, SEIU and the ranks of ILA and the ranks of, the carpenters and the ranks of whoever, UAW, UE, all of the various unions, but we're uniting around a program of what we're fighting for, in our unions, then, that's going to give us some, increase our potential power and also create openings where some of these unions can be transformed because the ranks are not in agreement with where the top-down leadership is going and this conservative stuff they're doing. So, you know, to me, if you're gonna err in any way, you know, it's just like, you know, with the black community, you know, just getting a black face in a high place, like we had Barack Obama in there, that's still not changing. It's not challenging or changing the system. You know, so yes, I mean, him being in there, and even with Kamala Harris, if she had gotten in there, she it was only going to be a limitation of things that she would be able to do in that post. But that's not the answer to transforming our conditions. You know, it tactically, yes, we needed to, you know, vote for her to keep Trumpism from taking the power that they've taken. But, and so it's the same thing with our unions. You know, the fight can't just be about who's at the top.
Right.
It has to be, you know, rooted among the rank and file in a program that's fighting for their best interests and convincing people of what those interests are, you know, and fighting that and opposing the direction they choose. So, you know, then the unions create a basis of regrouping, you know, creating alignments that weren't there before that give some power and strength, you know, to fight back against the direction of these unions. So to me, that's the only thing I would add into all of the things that I've heard people saying, you know. So it's, you know, I'm not saying it's easy, but, you know, there's not a reason to despair. There's a reason to, you know, to organize more and to be creative and thoughtful and strategic about, you know, how we're organizing over the next several years to position ourselves for, you know, seizing on opportunities when they open up. And like everybody's been saying, they will, you know, because there's corruption and stuff. They're going to be fighting among themselves.
Yeah.
You know, we can see that, you know, because it's corrupt. You know, and there's a lot more we could say about it, but that's the only thing I would add to what I've been hearing everybody
All right.
talking about.
Sister Yvette, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to comment because you didn't get to me when we was talking about that.
Oh, I didn't?
No.
Man, I apologize. Well, go
I
ahead.
bowed out first because I didn't want to be first to say something about it because I received the picture too, so I already had a heads up.
Got you. Go ahead. Yeah. But what you think, man? You know,
yeah. So
we on the outside, man. People think we just, you know, can't be trusted, man, and you know, it's terrible.
right. So when I received that, like you said, your heart sunk because I'm like, now, you know, I'm used to people on the street. Like I said, when I was in the Pride Parade last year in Atlanta, the folks was asking what the Teamsters gonna do about, you know, I'm like, because he was out here not endorsing nobody. Y'all gonna endorse? And I'm like, we already did. This caucus did. So,
Right.
and I'm like, so we've already been battling, but to hear, you know, that our union siblings are questioning was a hard pill to swallow. But I'm thankful that they did put the name up there because they knew who it was. So they're not talking about all of us. I'm thankful of the relationships that I have already formed with other unions.
Absolutely.
Reason being, one of my union siblings from another union sent me that because she know what time it is with me, you know, and what we actually stand for around here. So he walking around with this Teamsters versus everybody bullshit shirt on when it should be Teamsters versus corporate greed, corporations, fascism. We're against some stuff, but it's not everybody because I'm for the working people and the working class all day. So I would never rock no Teamsters versus everybody. How dare you? Like
Teamsters versus homelessness.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah, poverty.
Kind of stuff, but it's not each other. So you know, they know who it is, they know who the focus is. But like I say, thankful that we all have in so many areas have relationships with our local AFL, with our other members of other unions, so they know who they talking about, and it's not all us. I just, you know, hate that we got to fight because of all the pride I have into being a Teamster. I got to fight and battle with my own pride at this point because this one up here acting the fool. But that will be dealt with, and we will handle that as well. So it's not going to be long, but enjoy it while you can. And once you get swept to the side, like the rest of the folks that's kissing ass up there to Trump, once you get swept to the side by him and swept to the side by the membership, then we're going to go on about our way and keep fighting and get what we need to get done. So. That is all. I just had to add that in. We're going to be all right.
Oh, yeah. You're on mute, Chris.
Myself. Very rare that I do that. I think our future has to be, we have to do what Cuba did.
Mhm.
One of the first steps after the revolution in Cuba was to eradicate illiteracy.
Mhm.
We have to eradicate labor illiteracy in the working class, in our members, because what's happening is that they don't know anything about labor. They don't know the history. They don't know what happened over here, what happened over there. So they don't know the evolution of the movement. That's been coming, the Knights of Labor and IWW and all these different things like that. So we have to eradicate that, and we have to let them see and teach what and why it is important to have solidarity between races, classes, sexes, orientations, because at the end of the day, we have a common enemy, and that's the oligarch.
Yeah.
And if we can accomplish that, then we can change this. But we can't accomplish that fraternizing and playing around. And to my sister Yvette's point, we have to eliminate. Well, they all go down anyway. Anything that Trump touches turns to trash at the end of the week.
Oh, that's right.
You don't end up in jail, right? He's the only one that is, like the Godfather. He's the only one that don't go to jail, but
I'm telling
everybody
you.
else ends
Oh
up
my
in jail.
God.
So, because if you think of who went down there, the ILA, it is reputed. I mean, they have their own crime commission that just focuses on them alone. So it tell you the degree of corruption that has existed in that union for God knows how long.
Hmm.
So I ain't making it up. They actually have their own internal crime corruption. They seem to have bought them off too, but that's another story for another day.
Wow. Sister Shaw.
So I have a question for you, Hooker.
Okay.
So we had a discussion and I told you about a show that was on Netflix. You had a homework assignment. Did you watch it?
No, I didn't. I forgot all about that show. You're gonna have to let me know that I can watch
Oh
it today
Lord.
because
No,
I'm
she
off
didn't.
tomorrow, so I can watch it.
Hmm. Please watch it. It's called Pinky Blinders. It's on Netflix. It gives Chris, I know you're a historian, so it gives some of this, a little bit of that. It goes from the beginning. It starts in Europe about a family that was tied in with labor and a little bit of Teamsters, and then it goes over into America. So it gives a little history. It starts in, I think the setting is like during Prohibition times, but just watch it.
Okay.
Seriously, now I told you that was somebody's characteristics,
Right, I got you.
because
I remember now.
yeah, so my
But
thing
it's
is
six seasons, so you ain't gonna watch it all tonight.
Is it a
no,
movie or
no,
a series?
it's a
It's a
series.
series.
Just
Oh,
yeah.
series.
Did you watch it, Yvette? I told you about it. Did you watch a little bit of it?
It ain't on my binge yet. I finished one binge and go to the next. So it'll be next.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna start, tonight and see how far I get.
Okay. If you could just finish season 1,
Okay.
that'd be good. But it just sets the tone and a stage that everybody is on a stage. It's like, what my grandmama used to say, the world is a stage and everybody has a part.
Mm,
So just, if I watch that and I just look at certain people because I like to read the room,
right.
and I'm like, okay. and I go on about my business.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, please watch it. The other question is, how do you pronounce your name? Sis Ashaki?
Ashaki, yes.
Okay. Does Yvette have your information? Because Yvette is my source. She actually brought me in and pulled me under her wing and teach me, whatever
I'm
I
gonna put
need.
it in the chat right now for
Please,
everybody.
because I have something that I would like to discuss with you that's going on
Oh,
here and
great.
would like your advice on
I
how
would
to
love it.
move. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's it.
Oops.
That's all I have.
Okay. Well, hey, I'm glad you guys came on today. we get ready to go into some dark times to tomorrow, but I think we come from some good stock. Our ancestors, when you talk about dark times, they lived through it, experienced it, and we are here as a result of it. And so I'm looking forward to it. I'm still trying to have the hope that you guys have, that we're going to be all right. You guys know me, I'm a man of faith. But you know, we're gonna see. We're gonna see. We're gonna see what happened with this Trump guy, man. You know,
Yeah,
and
we are
then
gonna see.
you know what I mean. But my only thing is when the things start to happen, we need to be ready to move, ready to mobilize, and ready to fight. That's my biggest worry.
So you're young. So history tells us that we'll survive.
Mm-hmm.
Because if some Africans in Haiti could defeat Napoleon, was one of the most powerful people on the planet, right? Navy, army, everything, then defeated all kinds of people. And some brothers in Haiti defeated him and forced him to have to sell the Louisiana territories. People don't understand the impact of that, right?
True history.
We survived enslavement throughout the Caribbean, throughout the Americas. We have survived Jim Crow. We have survived lack of education. We have survived poor living conditions. We have survived Jim Clark. We have survived Bull Connor. We have survived George Wallace. We have survived Barry Goldwater. We have survived Barack Obama. We have survived Joe Biden. We have survived Nixon. We have survived the greatest oppression. And still
here.
Still here. They can't turn. We out of it. They have let us out. We ain't never going back to picking nothing. Let me tell you, what I tell you the last time, we don't even have a picnic. We have cookouts.
Right.
As soon as you say pick, we gone.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So, you know, once they start that, pick, well, we gone. Right? So we ain't never going back. They'll never. You're a religious man. So what does it tell you? As it was in the beginning, so shall it be in the end. We were the beginning. We will be the end. They can't defeat us. They have never defeated us. And listen, you can't play golf. You can't let one guy come and took over the whole damn game, raise the standard of the game, raise money, raise the prize money, right? The Venus Williams sisters, they cussed their father to no bitter end. They raised money, they raised the standard, they dominated the game. Anywhere that we participate, we dominate. And we're going to dominate this union if we can get certain ignoramuses out of the way and get on the road to doing something. We're going to wipe the slate clean, right? And get people in place who understands the need to eradicate labor illiteracy amongst the rank and file.
That's good stuff there. So, Sister Ashaki, you want to close this out?
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. For others there, I put my contact information in the chat. But I really enjoyed being a part of this thinking and discussion. We need to have more of these, you know, throughout the country, just, you know, bringing people together and talking through some of this stuff and seeing, you know, what thinking and, you know, creative solutions we can come up with, that kind of thing. You know, we you know, as everybody's been saying, you know, we shouldn't despair. I mean, you know, we're gonna be facing a tough time. We can't take it for granted. And it's fascism taking control of the national government. And that means that you know, the far right, they're brutal and they might do anything to hold on to power to get what they're trying to get. So, you know, we got to be cautious and thoughtful and strategic about what we're doing, using the right tactics at the right times, things like that. But, you know, but as Brother Chris laid out, You know, we have a long history
Yeah.
of things that we've survived through, and we can get through this as well. But let's get it through it coming out on the other side with a greater level of, you know, being able to move our struggle for freedom forward. And that's what, you know, I've spent my lifetime dealing with. And so it's an honor to meet you guys that I hadn't met before. Everett, Miss Spears, Miss Demetria, Big Dog. Appreciate you, man. Hearing from you. And
Thank you, sister. Appreciate you.
Robert was so excellent the first time we were together. I mean, Richard, excuse me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Richard was so excellent the first time we were together on that program, and I never forgot him. So it's really nice to get back and be a part of this with you guys again. And
yeah, stop by anytime. You know, we do
for
it
your
once a month.
All right,
Yeah,
keep it posted.
Yeah, so our next one, Chris, you let me know if you got anything going on. February 23rd, Black History Month. We'll be under a month of Trump, so we can see.
We'll see what's going on by then.
Yeah, we'll see. We still we still surviving. You know.
Well,
yeah, February 23rd. I'm good.
Yes, sir. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, let me put it down now.
Well, I'm just, you know, this immigration thing, I'm, you know, really hurting for the people that's going to be unnecessarily and unfairly and unjustly attacked by this thing, and what they're planning to do. And
I actually asked a question to my membership a couple of months ago, and I asked them, what do we do as a local, as a union, when our brothers and sisters get deported? Right, because they've been paying union dues, they've been working, they've been doing right, they've been doing the right thing, right? Do we just say, oh, you know, that's what they get? I mean, their families depend on them, and now they're gone. What does a union do then, right? Do we just say, oh, well, you know? So
I'm working with a coalition of people up here in New York around how to respond to this. Yeah. So if you ever want to come up and participate, feel free to do
Thank
that.
you.
You know I'm saying,
yeah, let's keep that in mind.
Well, when the price of chicken start going up, because there's
nobody to get it, huh?
Nobody get the price.
I'm gonna be back in touch with everybody about this potential meeting of you know, Black workers and unionists and activists around the country. We should meet, even if it's over Zoom initially. And then maybe this meeting in March that you're talking about would be a good place to gather. So
I'll have Larry. Larry's got your contact?
He should have.
All right. I'll make sure we link. I'll make sure we get you guys together. All right.
Beautiful.
All right, good people. Do not watch any of them news programs, any of them stations that's carrying the
inauguration.
Oh, baby, I'll be marching as usual. Marching. Here we go.
So
this all we doing. This all we doing.
I'm with you. I'm gonna be out there too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
all right, y'all be good. God bless you. Love y'all.
Well, all right.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
All right, now. Bye-bye.